Hello everyone and welcome to the Batcave. Today we're going to be learning a little bit about the history of Goth and how it started, the different subcultures and subcategories of Goth and Goth fashion, some popular Goth icons, and what does Goth look like now in the modern day. So now let's jump right in. Goth fashion first started in the United Kingdom in the 80s. This started when Gothic rock listeners started dressing differently from the post-punk listeners. This also happened when post-punk became goth rock. Some goth rock bands are Sisters of Mercy, Bauhaus, Susie and the Banshees, and The Cure. These were all very popular bands in the 80s, and some of them still remain popular to this day. Next, we have more music. Most of these are pop punk artists, but some of them also produce goth rock and gothic metal. These are all things that some goth fans listen to, such as like Typo Negative, Clan of Zymox, the Cocteau Twins, and forgot that band's name. One thing is, people do confuse goth with mall goth, which isn't actually a part of goth. It's actually stemmed from nu metal, which is a type of metal. It came in the 90s when metal started getting angstier and bands such as Kitty and Limp Bizkit came around, same with Korn. Other popular artists are Deftones, Creed even could be considered one, and that's what goth is confused with what goth is commonly confused with in the modern day. Now for goth fashion and the different materials used in it. Commonly used is leather, rubber, and lace. There's also PVC, which is used too. Most times you see rubber being used on the runway in goth looks by artists such as Rick Owens. Next, we're going to move on to the different subcategories in goth fashion. There's corporate goth, cyber goth, trad goth, romantic goth, and pastel goth, but that's not there. First is romantic goth. It involves a lot of lace, period elements from the Victorian era, sad poetry, and also romantic poetry or romantic old movies. Basically, it just focuses on the elements of dark romance. Next is corporate goth or corp goth. This is all about toning down your appearance for the workplace, or even toning it up. Usually this style is a bit more tame, but it uses all of the same elements, such as the common black hair, black clothes, red clothes, and purple. So, yeah. Next up, we have cybergoth. This was very popular in the 2000s and the 2010s, but it slowly died down as pastel goth came over and started to take hold. That's also when Tumblr started to popularize the style too. So it was very short-lived and futuristic, also had a lot of neon, as you can see. Okay, next is trad goth. This is kind of the mother goth style. It's what was commonly worn by Susie Sue, Robert Smith from The Cure, and other old artists from the 80s. Lastly, for style, we have pastel goth. This is all about adding very light pastel colors and adding adding them into a goth style. This may be used by this was popularized by Tumblr, and it may have a lot of elements of skulls, and they also like to listen to more goth pop, such as like Strawberry Switchblade or the Cocteau Twins. Moving on to the goth icons, we first have the Addams Family. This is one of the most well-known goth families, or could be considered goth, considering they love everything about, well, the children have a fascination with death, but also how they all just dress in black. They have a creepy house. So, I mean, what could be more goth than that? Next, we have the South Park goth kids. My favorite is Henrietta because she really likes Edgar Allan Poe, and they all are just shown basically mocking goth stereotypes, but it's also a good way to show out, or not show out, but show what goth culture is. Okay, and lastly, we have our big icon, Elvira. Elvira was shown first in Mistress of the Dark in 1988. Her real name is Cassandra Peterson, and Elvira is the role that she plays pretty much everywhere. So, she also, her second movie that she starred in was The Haunted Hills, and that was released in 2001. Modern goth culture today. This is what most goth looks will look like today. They'll usually be very modernized, using a lot of modern elements, such as like, they also follow basic beauty trends just as anyone else just doing goth makeup. But this can also be confused for other styles, such as scene or even emo fashion. Thank you so much for learning about the goth history, or the history of goth, some of the different styles and subcategories, who some of the popular goth icons are, and what it looks like in the modern day.